Welcome to Beyond the Backlog, where we look at thrilling tales of gaming triumphs, both past and present, exploring the strategies, challenges, and unforgettable moments that shape the ever-evolving landscape of our digital adventures. I'm Nick.
And I'm Zack.
And today, let's talk about May games.
Yeah, did your backlog increase in May?
You know what? I think it stayed the same, if not go down a tiny bit.
All right, so what new games did you get?
So I picked up 3 games, 2 of them Steam, 1 of them Switch. I found a decent enough deal on Mario Wonder, so I decided, you know what, let's just grab that, get it physical.
Fantastic game. Absolutely. Let me know when you're playing it.
Yeah, 100%. And then I picked up 2 games on Steam. One of them is Manor Lords, which is like a city builder kind of game. I haven't really gotten into it yet, but seems fun enough. And Killer Frequency, which I did play and beat, so we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, I remember you being excited about that one, and it did sound really cool. So
yeah, it was super interesting.
I have it on my Steam wish list now.
Yeah. What about you? What'd you do? Buy anything?
I have a clean conscience and a clean slate here. But to be fair, I also spent the first half of the month not home. Like I was out on a field course for school. So all I had with me was my handy dandy 3DS. So that kind of controlled what I was able to play. But in terms of games that actually came out this month that I'm interested in, I know for me personally, I was excited for Endless Ocean Luminous.
Yeah.
And I even did play Endless Ocean, the second one, this month to kind of hype myself up for it. But the reviews aren't exactly stellar.
Last I saw, Metacritic had it at, I think, 62.
Yeah, and I think it's because they take this diving and like exploring and seeing these marine animals gameplay and made it randomly generated. So,
okay.
So the landmarks repeat frequently. The types of fish you find will be kind of random and repeat. Like you can find treasures, but they're just going to be like, there's no rhyme or reason to it. You can't look up a guide on where to go to find these things. And it just kind of strips back a lot of the old gameplay. So I don't think I'm going to pick it up anytime soon.
Yeah, it's the new kind of thing where they started making everything like a roguelike. Mm-hmm. Right? It's randomly generated. People love that. Replayability.
Yeah, but when there's no threat and it's like you can spend an hour diving in this almost identical square map every time. It definitely, I can see why people are already a little bored of it.
Yeah, exactly. But we got a couple other ones that new, seem really interesting. As a quick one, we've got the second installment of Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2. And that's an old one. I think it was 2019, 2018, thereabouts. It's supposed to be a really cool looking game, but very much that sort of walking sim, not a lot of action thing. If you really like the first one, you'll really like this one. If you hated the first one, you'll hate this one kind of thing. Then there's a neat little puzzle game, Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, which was done by the people for Sayonara Hearts, which seems interesting enough. You control a woman invited to a mysterious project, like some kind of murder mystery type of thing with puzzles.
All right, yeah. And I think still coming out later this month. Like we're doing this before the end of the month, but I wanted to pick up Horizon Chase 2 when it comes out on console because one of my favorite like Super Nintendo games was Top Gear, and I remember going on about how Horizon Chase is like the first game that perfectly captures that for me.
Yeah,
and I loved the first one. I'm curious to see how they improved the second one, and I also might at some point pick up the Thousand Year Door remake. Like I've never actually played the original on GameCube, but I had it listed as one I wanted to play and beat as an RPG of the month this year, and I might do it on the Switch version.
Yeah, it almost forces you to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, I may as well buy the new one. We've got Ghost of Tsushima coming to PC as well, which is kind of neat. All the people that didn't get it, like myself, who it's hard to pay full price for a PS4 game right now, and I don't have a PS5 to really get it. You've got a System Shock remake, which seems really cool. I always like when they do any type of old school PC game like that, just giving it new life.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got Xbox Arcade Classic Braid getting an anniversary edition.
Do you know if there's any like new content or anything in that one?
That I don't know. I think it's just new. I don't even know if they would have done anything new with it.
Fair enough. And especially with like Ghost of Tsushima, I'm imagining people with all these really high-end PCs and immense like CPU power and like graphics cards, and just how amazing the particle effects in that game are going to look.
And is learning from a Dark Souls, Demon Souls kind of thing. I'm worried about some of the issues that'll go with porting it. So there's all kinds of issues with all like the FromSoft games. Mm-hmm. So I just assume any console exclusive going to PC is going to have some kind of issues. So interesting to see if that holds true.
All right. With that, though, I think we're ready to jump into our actual games that we beat this month, and I'll kick it off. Since I was already talking about Endless Ocean, as I said, I beat the second game in the series, known as Endless Ocean 2 in PAL and Endless Ocean Blue World in North America. And right away, when I started playing this, like, it feels like a carbon copy of the very first game in the series, which is largely true. But there's quite a few new additions to the gameplay that kind of flesh it out. They tried their best to give you more a sense of there's some danger, there's some challenge to it. But to be honest, like, if you get attacked by an aggressive fish like a shark, it just removes like one bar of air. There's not really any punishment for doing anything poorly. And anytime there's like a little danger sign, like, you're still perfectly safe. At most, you might just not make it to your objective in time. That's the only real risk of losing. But even when it's like, dodge out of the way of like this incoming whale or something, I literally just sat there and put the controller down. As like, I don't think it's going to do anything, and it didn't. Like,
now, do you think the game would have been better served just eliminating something like that?
Yeah, it feels like a tacked on way to be like, oh, see, there's more to it than just purely explore at your own pace.
Yeah,
but
that's kind of what would have drawn me to the game. It's just, you get to, you're a little bit like a marine biologist exploring, seeing the different types of fish.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I want there to be danger?
Yeah, and I think the new additions they added already add enough to it. Like, you get this pulsar is the instrument that allows you to like tame the wild animals that are dangerous. And you literally just like shoot little balls of who knows what at them, and it makes them not angry anymore. But then you can also use it to like heal other kinds of fish. And then you also get a sensor that can detect different types of materials. So as like the story's progressing, you're looking for this specific material type, and you use the sensor to like guide you through the maze essentially. But beyond that, I like that when you click on a fish, you just get a little information blurb about it. You don't have to do like you did in the original, where you just sit there wagging your remote back and forth until a blurb pops up. And that just made it a lot more streamlined. It was literally just like, click on fish, but your main objective is to actually complete the story.
Yeah.
And they improved on that by making it so there's now 6 different locations to actually dive, instead of just like one big sea area, like the exotic waters of Canada.
Oh,
I know. I was so excited for that. Honestly, it's a big open nothingness with a couple of icebergs, but I was still Canada. There's even a dangerous Greenland shark at the bottom, and I was like, I know these things literally swim at like one of the slowest speeds of all animals in the sea. Why is this the threat here? But anyway,
it's because it's cold and moves slower, right?
Yeah, apex predators.
Yay. Canada represent.
But yeah, like that Canada region in particular felt very big and empty.
Okay.
Which makes sense, like it's the waters of Canada, but also this is a video game, and we don't always need that kind of real world logic. But my favorite one was this new like river, where it was totally different, because instead of being about how deep things are, it's like strictly about navigating horizontally through this whole river system, and there's alligators and piranhas, so like lots of things to try and avoid.
See, and I kind of thought that would be the other route you do with a Canada, is do like a St. Lawrence kind of thing and do maybe a Great Lake, but
it's the Arctic.
You take Arctic instead.
And like the first game was largely about searching for where there might be whales, and like the whales do come up quite frequently in this one, but they're more just like little set pieces along the way. And there are some other like cool mythical creatures they added in, like the Leviathan from Moby Dick. I had no idea that was a thing in the game, and I was just swimming, and I just see this giant white sperm whale going by. I'm like, what?
Yeah, a little spear out of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So there's actually a pretty good list of them, and some of them require very specific conditions. I just happened to be at the right place at the right time for one of them. But once I beat the game, I don't feel like I'm going to go and 100% it. I feel like I got enough of an Endless Ocean fill that I'm not going to go for Luminous, as I said.
And it seems like one where you just maybe pop it in if you're feeling fishy, a little bit of ichneology, just, why not?
Honestly, I don't know if I would go back to the first one or the second one, more likely.
Okay. They kind of do the same thing, right? They
kind of do the
coin,
same thing.
Really.
Yeah.
My first one I beat, like I said, I went and played Killer Frequency. So it's developed by Team 17, the guys that did the Worms series. And then they bought the guys that did the Escapists, which is like a prison type of game. The 2023 game is a horror game. So horror game, murder mystery elements, and kind of a walking sim, right? Like there's no action or anything. You're just moving people around. It gives the same feel as like a Firewatch, Suicide of Rachel Foster, where you're going and there's tension, but it needs that little bit of taking yourself out of it.
Now, when you say it's like horror adventure, like is there actual scares to it, or
like there's scares? There's a lot of homages. I don't pick up on any of them. I'm not a horror movie buff, other than like the obvious, like, okay, it's kind of going for like a Scream vibe.
Yeah, like when you say Firewatch, I'm imagining it's like kind of there's tension, but it's smoke and mirrors, and the actual story isn't horror.
In a way. Right. So you're a radio DJ for a small town, Illinois city. And the first part of it is the 911 dispatcher giving you a call saying there's been an issue. The sheriff's been murdered, and the only 911 dispatcher in town has taken the deputy to the nearest town. It's like 3 hours away, 6-hour round trip. So now you've got to field all of the 911 calls in addition to doing like radio DJ stuff, which is really neat.
Yeah, it sounds like a cool mix.
Cool mix. Not quite so much DJing. So you more like you pick a song, you go through, it spins the record, and you're talking to your editor, basically, who's talking you through everything. And you take radio calls, she fields them, they answer them live on air, which is it's kind of a cool little way to do it. And then you wind up either helping or hindering the people trying to escape this killer.
Like, can they die or live based on your choices?
Yes. Yeah. So they die or live based off of how you help them, if you're right or wrong. So one of them that I'll bring up as an example is lady calls and she thinks she's being hunted by the guy, and you have to figure out where she is. She doesn't know. She's all in a tizzy, but there's a frat party house just beside her. So you have to figure out how to get in contact with them. And you have to do that by figuring out, okay, it's a frat house party. There's got to be takeout places that'll go there. So you have to go through your radio studio, find different ways to get their different takeout menus, and then think through, okay, what would frat guys do, and call the right store.
So does that make it kind of like a puzzle sort of to
a little bit of a
solve?
Puzzle element? Yeah. So each one has a little puzzle for you to do. Either that or like directing them through a map to avoid the killer, things like that. It was a really cool story. The puzzles I wish were maybe just a little bit more complex. Because it was very much, there was one that I kind of had to think through out of all of them. The rest of them were pretty well just like, oh, okay, well, I just need to find this thing. This thing pretty well gives me the answer, and then I can just go through. But I think I wound up doing it in a night. I think it's like a 4 or 5 hour long game. But really neat. I wound up saving everyone, which was nice.
Oh, that's less fun.
Right?
That's like playing Until Dawn and knowing how everyone's could die and like avoiding it.
But then if I play it again, I just kill everyone and then see how that ending goes through.
I've done both.
Right? Because I did really like the story. The story was compelling enough to me. to be like, okay, there was enough of a swerve that it caught me off guard. Like, it was just a fun game, a good experience.
Are you the killer?
Yes. No.
No.
Maybe. But I'd call it like a 7 out of 10.
Gotta play it and find out.
Right? It's a fun game. I'd recommend it when it goes on sale. I think I picked it up on sale because it kept the horror element intact pretty well throughout the entire thing.
How much is it normally?
I want to say it was like 30, 35.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds pretty reasonable. Like, if it's only like a 4 or 5 hour game, I might wait until it's like half that.
Yeah, I think I got it for half.
Cool.
So, yeah, good job. Pick it up if you can.
All right, I'll dive into my second one, which I remember mentioning this game back in January, was on my currently playing, but I was doing it bit by bit, and that is the racing game on PlayStation 3, Split Second. And it's presented as like a TV show where kind of like Top Gear, it's like a competition, and you earn points by completing challenges to unlock more episodes. To unlock the final race of that episode so that you can move on to the next episode. And what first thing that really stuck out to me when I started playing was the low number of like HUD elements. Everything that you need is just on like the back of your car. So your position is like a little, like say 1 out of 8 there, and your special meter that you build up to unleash all these crazy, devastating effects on opponents is just like a little semicircle that kind of goes around the bottom of your car, and that's pretty much all you need. The rest of it is very just like paying attention to the environment around you. When you reach like top speed, it'll kind of zoom in slightly and the screen will shake around, and you really do feel like you're picking up speed.
I like that too, because a lot of times racing HUDs are very busy. Mm-hmm. Like, they don't need to be.
And it helped me really focus. Like, I'm somebody that will look at the map when I'm racing and like, plan out what I'm going to do on the turn ahead. But there's no map here. It's literally just pay attention. And there are only a few tracks. Like, it might only be a dozen in total. But you get to know them pretty well. And by the time I was at the end of the game, like you do repeat them quite a few times. Mm-hmm. And by the time I was at the end, I knew exactly where the points that I could trigger effects were. And you kind of learn that timing of, if an opponent is exactly this far ahead, then now's my time to press it. And it's going to like tumble boulders right on them, or something's going to blow up right next to them.
Yeah.
And you do kind of like learn how to play. Like, so you have 3 different levels of power plays. The first one is just basic, like something goes pop, something falls over. The second one is more catastrophic, like an entire bridge collapses and like the entire track ahead is blocked off for like a second or two. And then ones that are literally the entire route changes, and that'll stay in place for the rest of the race. And something else I loved was, even on those alternate routes, there's alternate shortcuts and stuff. So it's not like a shortcut in most racing games where it's just a slightly shorter path. It's
you hopped around something, or you sped through over a ramp.
Like, they are meaningful changes to the course. That being said, I might be wrong, but I feel like there's only like 4 or 5 actual course themes. And as I said, there's only maybe 12 distinct tracks, but each one like pairs up. So there's like 2 that use the exact same assets, but just have different layouts. And I found that kind of disappointing, especially because this was, the era of PlayStation 3 where everything was all like brown and gray washed.
Yeah. Yeah. I hate that time. But you compare it to like Super Mario Kart, where you almost expect it. It's the first kind of thing. So yeah, sure, you have 4 different donut lanes. Do you really need 2 different, I'm sure there's some kind of ice one or forest one, right?
Mm-hmm. So that kind of let me down a little bit, but the more you play and kind of get the hang of it, I feel like my perspective shifted a little bit from this is cool explosions everywhere kind of game to it's a game where your goal is to be competitive, race well, and by just naturally doing well, you're going to build up your multipliers, and like in certain challenges, like where one of them is you just have to stay ahead of all these trucks that are dropping explosive barrels.
Okay.
And it's like that game is less about maneuvering in between the barrels. You're going to blow up if you do that. It's more about trying to maintain top speed and completely avoid the lines of barrels before they drop. And kind of figuring out that perspective shift where, yes, there are explosions everywhere, but that's not the main point of the game. The main point of the game is racing. And that made me like really start to appreciate it more.
Yeah.
As it wasn't just flash, it was actual substance there. And it was a lot of fun. And I would definitely go back and go for like a first place in all the challenges.
Yeah, 'cause that's pretty well what you would count as like 100% kind of thing, right? It's not, you unlock everything, you get first place and everything. That seems pretty well lit.
Yeah, like I finished the main story mode, but like after that point, there's just like a trophy for finishing all the story missions with a first place. And that would be my goal if I felt like continuing to play. And I might, because this has been a game I've just been playing like an hour or two every week or so on the side.
It's always nice to have those kind of games. That's what I do a lot of times with like RPGs. Just do it a bit, do some grinding, maybe advance some story.
Yeah, and as far as I know, I don't think it's on any other platform, which is kind of a shame. Like it is one that should get a sequel or should be re-released.
Probably the era of re-releases, so I could see it possibly. But my next one is another kind of shorter one, but I finally got around to playing Inside. So Inside, the 2016 game developed by Playdead. They're the guys that did Limbo. Limbo, when I played it, one of my favorite games. So it's like a puzzle platformer, very monochromatic, right? A lot of blacks, whites, grays.
But a little more color than Limbo.
A little more color than Limbo. It gives me vibes of like The Giver, that old book where everyone just sees in black and white, but then like, some people see the color. So like your sweater's red, and I think there's like little chicks in the game. They're yellow, but otherwise it is very like black and white and just kind of samey. So you go through puzzle platformer. The puzzles get a lot more complex as you go along, and the world just gets a little bit more zombified, right? Very much a late 2000s, 2010s indie style, right? Where you're trying to say more with setting than with dialogue.
Yeah, like, and it even starts outside in the woods, right? And you go through like a farm, and there's like sheep, pigs.
Yep. Then you get into caves and research buildings.
Especially when you get underwater.
Yeah.
Oh boy. And that's where you're like, this is totally devoid of life now.
Yeah.
There's a huge change, except for a certain thing living in the water. Hoo-hoo, spoilers.
Exactly. But yeah, so you wind up being one of the only ones free because everyone else is this kind of like brainwashed, zombified thing, other than like the scientists doing experiments on everyone. You know, that's the subtle undertones. But like I said, it's just one of those quintessentially indie games to me. In the realm of like a Braid, a Bastion, of like all those games that kind of came out around the same time.
Now, spoiler alert for another list we might make soon, but Inside is probably one of my favorite indie games I've ever played. And I remember I bought it the day it released in 2016, downloaded it and beat it in like 4 hours.
I think this game was on my playlist since I beat Limbo. I think it sat there for about 2.5 years. And then I bought it because it was on a good sale. And then it sat for about 3-4 years. Like, been a long time coming. I know that doesn't really add up to 2024, but
I don't know how it's being perceived nowadays, but I remember when it came out, like, there were publications giving it 10 out of 10s.
Oh, yeah.
And did you go through and find like the secret hidden extras?
I found one of them just naturally playing through.
Well, if you don't know, if you find all of those, there's a super secret base you can find, and I won't spoil anything about it, but it is worth checking out just for the sheer like creepy like setting of it.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah, as an overarching, it's Inside was neat because it took the tried and true gameplay of like a puzzle platformer and made it a little bit more layered. I still find something like Mario to be more fun in that kind of space, but Inside's trying to do something with it, and I appreciate that. Same kind of thing with Celeste. Celeste is trying to tell a story through its platforming. It's just one of those, I don't want to say mobile, but it's like the base levels of it, right? It feels like games like that are kind of what games in the 80s were trying to do.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to be a foundational piece, I think.
Yeah, I really hope that whatever their next project is that's supposedly similar in style and like themes will come out soon.
It'll be interesting because I believe one of the founders left as well.
Yeah, they also announced it like several years ago.
Oh yeah, like 2018, I think.
Yeah, so who knows if it's actually being worked on.
Yeah.
But anyway, getting on to my last game that I played, quote unquote, this month. I kind of checked back in with my fantasy life while I was out on my field course. So that's a RPG on the 3DS, and I'm using it as my RPG that I played and beat in May. So in this game, you create a custom avatar and venture out into the magical world of Riveria, where you can pick any of 12 different classes. And you don't speak, like your character doesn't speak. You speak through this butterfly companion that you have, who also essentially like nudges you to the main story beats. And the way that you unlock more story is completing a certain number of tasks for this. Like your goal is to save like the goddess of the town, pretty much. And the butterfly helps you essentially accumulate enough points to unlock the next main story bit. And while you're working on that story bit, you can't change your class. So you're locked into one of those 12 for a mission, essentially. And that will greatly influence how you experience the game, which is really cool. So you can easily switch between them in between those segments. But at any given point, like you're essentially working through 5 different like levels of each class, and those first 5 levels are essentially the same tutorial in every single class. And if you decide to swap between them every time you can and try and like get them all up evenly, you're going to do the exact same tutorial like 12 times in a row.
So more a game made to just do one thing, do that, and then do the second thing, do that.
At the very least, if you play, like say you chose to be a woodcutter and you got your woodcutting skill up to the next rank, if you then changed to like a magician, you can still use an axe to cut wood. You just won't be able to do like the next highest level thing that you could have as a woodcutter. So like you retain some of your abilities.
Yeah, they kind of put you the next step or 2 down.
So level 5, I think, is pretty much what you need to get to in order to make it through most of the story. But after that, you can get all of your skills up to level 15 is mastery. And I don't even know what god level is, because there's like master and then legend and then god. It might be like level 30 or something. I don't know how long it takes to get any one skill to that, but it is not worth the grind for me, because there's not a huge variety of tasks to do. Like harvesting and combat skills, you just have a light attack and a heavy attack, essentially, and then a special button. Whereas like those artisan kind of skills like carpentry or smithing is just like a button timing mini game. And so like if you're a low level doing low level things, you'll kind of get the rhythm of that. But if you're a high level doing low level things, you'll have a bigger window that you can hit it in, and you'll do a higher percentage of the task with each hit, versus the higher level things will have a much narrower window of which you can like hit it successfully. And beyond that, like the story itself does not matter. It's just a way to encourage you that you have to at least move up your rank in one of them.
Kind of like a dime a dozen. Like, hey, do this thing. Cool. Okay, here's more stuff to do.
There's a goddess who's in trouble. You save the day. Spoiler. But yes, you kind of go through each one. You start as a novice, and then you go fledgling, apprentice, adept, and I'm pretty sure adept is all you need to get to in any one skill to beat the game. But then after that, there's expert, master, and it really ends abruptly. Like, clearly, it was just trying to get you enough of a tutorial that now you have everything you need to go out and explore. But as I said, like, every skill that you want to get up to that level, you have to go through almost the exact same tutorial. Like, every region that you unlock is essentially just the region where you can find all the resources you need for that skill level. So as I said, if you swap around, you're going to just spend a lot of time in one region getting each one up to the next level. And it got kind of boring.
Yeah. That's more the downside of RPGs like that. If it's too much grinding, not enough payoff, it's like, what's the point?
But if you reach the point that you are now level 5 in all of your skills, the world is just yours to explore, and you can do all these side quests at your leisure. You can go for mastering all those skills, and it does have this cute sort of presentation. Like, there is quite a bit of depth in the gameplay once you get later on. Like, there's drop tables for monsters and skills synergize with each other going on. It just takes 25 hours to get there. And that's the problem for me.
Yeah.
But I would say it's a mix of elements I enjoy about games like Animal Crossing, kind of that do it at your own pace. Something like RuneScape, where there is that skill synergy, and raising one skill opens up opportunities for other skills. And even the game I played last month, Rune Factory, it feels like it is that kind of game. Just, I would say this one's probably done better.
Okay, interesting. And you know what? You did another RPG.
I did another RPG.
Not one from the list, so you're going to have to cut something, but we'll see what that is near the end of the year, right? My last one, the one that I did for my 12 and 12, is Sonic Heroes. It's a Sega game. It's Sonic. You know the thing. But rather than really talk about it, because it's a Sonic game, you have 3 different people, a speed guy, a flying guy, a power guy, and there's 4 different campaigns. So you have the Team Sonic, Team Shadow, Team Amy, and Team Chaox, however you want to call it. And you go through and you do them, and each of them are supposed to be your beginner level, your intermediate, your advanced, your expert. That's kind of your difficulty range. But it all is just kind of samey.
Each of the 4 groups of characters is a different difficulty?
Yeah, so Team Amy is a lot easier. Team Chaox is the harder one. Or Team Shadow, one of the 2.
Do you feel like it would have benefited from being modeled more like Sonic Adventure, where it's each character is a different gameplay style?
I don't know. That could be part of the issue, because I just ultimately found it wasn't really stimulating.
Fair enough.
Right? You don't get the movement. My favorite part of Mario games is the movement, where you feel as you're getting better, it's smoother, more efficient. Whereas with Sonic games, as much as he goes fast, especially the 3D ones, you just feel like you're just kind of running around. Right? It doesn't have that same angle with some of it. And I think it's just augmented in this game in particular.
Yeah, even Sonic games I enjoy, I don't feel like I master by the end.
No. So it just doesn't have the same kind of fun or replay value to me that the Mario games do. You just move and jump. And then your skill expression is kind of the homing attack, which if that's your skill expression, just feels a little bit off. Compare it to things like flood usage, diving and rolling, or triple jumping, side jumping in any of the various games. It's nice that I'm kind of going through these games and beating them, because then it just crosses things off that kid me would have never done. But it's a good game. It's one of those that falls into that group of maybe if I had played it and beat it 10, 15 years ago, I'd think something different. But
when did it come out?
2003.
Oh my gosh, I don't even I was thinking Sonic Forces in my head for a moment there, because I was that was much more recent. Anyway.
Yeah, no, we're this is GameCube PS2 era kind of thing. I was it's fine.
Wait, was it the direct follow-up to Sonic Adventure?
I believe so. Because I think it was 2, then Heroes, then you get into Riders, and then I think the Wii ones.
And was this game also pretty short, or am I imagining that?
It wasn't too bad, but again, it has the same issue that some do, where you reuse assets because they go to the same places.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of moved around differently. Like, it was fine. I think of the 3 games, it was my least favorite that I played.
Fair enough.
But I think that about does it. Do you know anything off the top of your head you're going to get through in June, or just...
Well, I'm going to go back to the ones I said I was going to play in May, and I'm absolutely going to blast through Super Metroid. And I've been kind of vibing with the idea of Live Alive.
Yeah.
Like
Live.
Yeah, when we did a little recording of that, it seemed like really charming, so that might be my RPG next month.
Yeah. I don't remember off the top of my head what my 12 and 12s are, but Octopath Traveler is getting ever closer to actually being done. And I did a lot of Steam cleanup this month, kind of filtering out a bunch of games that I don't think I'll ever play.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I'll do the same for like a console, like a Wii or a GameCube. Kind of whiff off a couple of them. Maybe something like iNinja.
All right. That was on your 12.
That was on my 12 and 12.
There you go. It's decided.
Yep, ramble enough and I'll find what I was talking about. But that's it. That's all. Good morning, good night, whatever you do. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening.